Alright, this is no time to quarrel. How many of those twilights, though, involve people dying? We have gouged the stomach, gouged the knee, gouged the leg. And then, of course, on the 9th, witch shall revive, none shall be left alive. So I'm guessing, three more are gonna die in a row, and then, like, on this 9th twilight, everyone dies. Or something along those lines. If I know. I'm just grasping at straws here, man. Now that we are certain the culprit can enter and leave the mansion at will, and strike out of nowhere, we must give our undivided attention to surviving until tomorrow. I agree strongly with Aunt Nazi. Of course you do. Nazi knows what's up. She's a queen. We can figure out who the culprit is at our leisure tonight. For now, though, we're better off finding a place to barricade ourselves in. As I said this, I pointed out the clock to everyone. It was already 8 o'clock at night. We had been receiving shocks over and over again since the early morning. Our bodies and minds were both completely tired out. There's still a long, long time until tomorrow. We need to find some place to barricade ourselves in so we can rest our bodies and get even the smallest amount of relief. Oh, excuse me.
I agree. Everyone is already pushing their mental and physical limits, myself included. I believe it would be wise to take that into account as we move forward.
That's right. There's a high probability that the enemy's got the equivalent of a master key. Where's Shannon, Kanan-kun, and Goda-san holding master keys?
Yes. They were supposed to have them on their person during work.
We didn't want to disturb the scene, so we didn't investigate that closely. We can't eliminate the possibility that someone stole a key from them. In the first place, we know the culprit may have visited the servant room at some point to unlock the garden shed shutter. It's conceivable that they obtained a master key from there early on. There were many servants serving the Ushiromiya family. Because of that, there were several master keys. Furthermore, every time one employee started or finished working, the keys were passed between servants. And we had to acknowledge that this had probably gotten a bit sloppy at times in the past. Even if they borrowed a bundle of keys from the pockets of one of the murdered servants, is there any safe place that even those keys couldn't open?
Because of the nature of our job, we've been entrusted with keys to all the rooms. All of them in the mansion and in the guest house.
Except for Kinzo's study? So in other words, no matter where we hole up and lock ourselves in, it'd just be pointless. Fine. Who cares about locking up? If you're gonna come, bring it on, damn it! I'll beat you at your own game. No, you won't, dipshit. Enemy won't approach us from the front. I don't know about the first 6, but if we look at what happened to my parents and Kanan-kun, even grandfather, the enemy has only gone after isolated people. They don't have the power to assault all of us openly in a secure room. That's right. It's just like Aniki says. And maybe Aunt Nazi's rifle can serve as a deterrent to stop them from attacking. I hope that is so, but... Maria, I know you want to say something. Keep it to yourself and stay quiet for a while. Maria probably wanted to say something about how witches aren't afraid of things like guns. But if she were to say it out loud, the atmosphere around here would start to get pretty edgy. I had noticed and decided to put a stop to it.
If I may, I do know of just one place that cannot be entered, even with the servant key rings.
Where's that?
That would be the master's study.
I'm against this. I don't even want to think about going in grandfather's creepy room.
How many keys can gain access to that room?
There are 2. I always have one on my person. The other was held by the master himself, but just now I found this on the corpse in the boiler room.
Genji-san took a handkerchief out of his pocket and opened it, showing us the burnt and filthy study key. Then he showed it alongside his own key, which he once lent to Nazi.
Normally it would have been proper to leave the master's key for the police, but because of the master's orders to protect the safety of the study, I borrowed it for the time being. I see. Which means that Kinzo-san's study is the only place where we can be safe.
It would appear that way. I don't even want to think about being shut up in that strange room all night. It appears we must acknowledge that this room is safer than anywhere else right now. Even though grandfather locked himself in that safe room, the culprit brought him out and killed him. We can't be certain that it's truly safe. According to your theory, grandfather cleverly found a way around that receipt trick and left the room of his own free will. If so, the room might be a good place to barricade ourselves in after all. You're too optimistic, Aniki. However, at the same time, I thought he brought up a pretty interesting point. After all this gives us a chance to question the enemy, the witch herself, about how the sealed door had been opened. If we assume the culprit used some technique to kidnap grandfather from his study, They'd have to show us the same trick again if they wanted to assault us in the study. And that'd give us a chance to make the culprit prove how they did it right before our eyes. If she's really a witch, we'll be forcing her to use her little magic trick to open the door right in front of us. That's probably impossible. If you spin the chessboard around, it's obvious the culprit is acting in a way that'll make us think they're a witch. Yeah, well, you know what? How about you stop spinning the fucking chessboard around, huh? Leave it stationary. Do you not know how the fuck to play chess? You can't win the chess game if you keep spinning the board around. Your opponent's gonna be like, dude, let me fucking move my pieces. Like, no, I have to spin the chessboard around. You just imagine, like, he's actually doing that in an actual chess match. Not just, like, mentally spinning it around, but it's just like, huh. But if I spin the chessboard around, it's like, wait, what the fuck? If she really is a witch, all she's gotta do is appear in front of us and wow us with a colorful display of magic. Since she's avoided doing that, everything must be the work of a fake witch who wants us to think she's real. Therefore, a culprit who used a technique other than magic to defeat the closed room couldn't open the door before our eyes. Is grandfather's room big enough to stuff 8 people in?
Yes. There's a bed, sofa, and blankets, so while it's not luxurious, it'll be more than suitable for spending the night. There's also a sink, a bathroom, a refrigerator, and a liquor cabinet.
Whoa, that's incredible. But isn't that weird? You're saying he built another house inside his house? That's pretty cramped for the last house if someone like our grandfather bought a whole island and realized all of his dreams. That's right. After some point in time, Father probably couldn't feel at peace in any other place, even inside the mansion. I sneered about how he shut himself up in there, and this time we're the ones who are going to shut ourselves up. Ha! Jessica spat the words out. Jessica Chan, it sounds like you'd rather go search for the culprit than stay shut up somewhere. Of course I don't think we'll be able to find them if we just start searching on our own. In the end, we can't do anything but wait. Then it doesn't matter where we wait, does it? I'm not gonna run away or hide. Why don't we just take it easy in the parlor, watching TV or something while we wait for this Beatrice-sama to appear? It's perfectly fine if she doesn't appear. There's no need for us to be the ones to expose the culprit.
Well said. We shouldn't take needless risks before the police arrive.
Thank you, Dr. Nacho. I think we should move to Father's study. True, we have no proof that it's safe since Father was taken out of there. However, I can't deny the possibility that, as Balakun reasoned, Grandfather left the study of his own accord and was attacked outside. A while back I proposed that strange theory as a stopgap measure. But just as Aunt Eva had said, even though that trick would be possible, we couldn't explain what motive could have made Grandfather sneak out of his own study in such a troublesome way. Plus, Grandfather couldn't even have used that trick unless he knew that the receipt was wedged in the door. Aunt Eva hadn't pointed out that last part, but it's clear how absurd the theory was. So does that mean the sealed door formed a closed room, just as Aunt Eva had claimed? It is an undeniable fact that Aunt Nazi was the culprit. Is it? Okay. If Aunt Eva were here now, she'd probably make that claim openly and blow my strange theory away. But anyway, I had to admit that a room with both a bed and a toilet that all 8 people could be shut up in, and with only 2 keys, both of which were gathered here, that'd be the safest place in the mansion right now. At the very least, I figured this would be better than just staying shut up in the parlor and hoping nothing would go wrong. But wait, have we been safe only because we've been shut up in the parlor? What if leaving that room and moving to an unexplored location is actually more dangerous? Let's spin the chessboard around. Ah, it's useless. It's useless. It's all useless. My flimsy head is about to break out in a fever. If I keep spinning the chessboard around, right and wrong will keep switching places over and over. I won't be able to believe anything. Exactly. You get to a point where it's like, oh, you know, it's possible, but it's also possible over here, but it's also possible over here, but this is also possible over here. It's like, eventually you just have to say, you know what, this is the one I believe. Yeah, if I spin it around, there's also this possibility. It was like, this one. You have to make a choice. You have to be decisive here, my guy. You have to say, you know, hey, this one right here. This is where I'm putting my this is what I'm betting my chips on right here. This decision. This one right here. You have to step up and be like, all right, this is the one I'm betting on. It seems like the culprit is one of the 18. I want to believe in Beatrice. And once I start believing in Beatrice, I start wanting to find the culprit amid the 18. And that keeps spinning around forever in the end. My thoughts won't have taken one step from where they started. Exactly. You're going to have to take a stand and say, you know what? Either yes, Beatrice, or no, Beatrice. Not like, well, yes, Beatrice, but if I flip it around, no, Beatrice. But if I flip it around, yes, Beatrice. But if I flip it around, no, Beatrice. Quit being a fucking pancake and fucking pick a side. Quit flip-flopping. Pick your side. Decide, alright? Pick a fucking stance. You fucking fence rider. This man's starting to piss me off. How far back in the past was it that Kairi-san taught me about chessboard thinking? The concept of examining the situation by spinning it around and thinking from the enemy's side is good in some occasions. Sometimes you have to just say, okay, here's the one. I seem to remember being so interested by it back then, I used it to guide all my thinking. By the way, Kairi-san was Dad's co-worker back then. I never dreamed that she'd someday be added to our family. Am I about to say a flashback? Didn't Kairi-san tell me something once? I get the feeling she once said that while this chessboard thinking was one way to look at things, it certainly wasn't all powerful. Thank you! Yo, Kairi from the grave, thank you for the big ups. It wouldn't be good to rely on it too much. Yes! Yes! Kairi mad fucking goated. Chessboard thinking is my own interpretation of something called game theory. Game theory! Which I read about in a YouTube video. I've read about. It's a very interesting subject, so you should tackle it yourself when you get into college, Matt Pat. I mean, what? I really want to try it. If I could study and perfect my chessboard thinking, it'd be fun to be able to read into any opponent's moves, wouldn't it? But you can't believe in it blindly. Not everyone is Sans Undertale, Matt Pat. Game theory is a very deep and complicated subject. Everyone is Sans Undertale. Chessboard thinking is just my interpretation that skims the surface of game theory. In order to thoroughly read your opponent's moves like you're imagining, you need to study your opponent and realize that they are Sans Undertale. Additionally, while chessboard theory is convenient and practical, it isn't perfect. It has many weak points despite its convenience. Weak points? Yes. Chessboard thinking is founded upon game theory. When you thoroughly investigate game theory, it boils down to Sans Undertale. Do you know what the weak point of math is? It's noise. In math, when you write 1 + 1 = 2, that process will always result in 1 + 1 = 2, no matter how many billions of years pass. Nothing more, nothing less. That's because there's absolutely no noise mixed in. But for example, unlike math, the Japanese language has noise mixed in. Kanji are a good example. Oh god. Old kanji and new kanji are slightly different, which represents an introduction of noise created by changes between time periods. Isn't history the same? There are dozens of policies that seem foolish in the modern era, but were meaningful at some point in the past. Because the rules of chess are fixed, when a pair of experts are discussing one particular layout, it's possible they could reach the same conclusions whether they're from 100 years in the past or 100 years in the future. However, if the rules of chess had gone through massive changes over time, it's possible that a discussion about the same layout would have changed as well. That's right. Events in the world of humans are normally full of noise. Are human emotions that way? Even if the exact same thing occurs more than once, there's no guarantee that humans will always act in a predictable fashion. Oh wait, is this still... Oh, this is probably still Kairi, isn't it? The moment we try to use a math-based theory to predict someone's actions, we must be aware that our theory has built-in weaknesses and limits. Simply put, chessboard thinking is extremely weak against noise and fickleness as well. Against noise and fickleness, as well as mistakes or incorrect knowledge. That's right. Kairi-san definitely said that. And you're only just now remembering it? After you've spun the chessboard like 50 fucking times in the last 24 hours? Like, you're just now remembering, oh yeah, maybe I shouldn't be doing that. Maybe I should, realize that this theory isn't perfect. Chess has always been a game where both sides play by the same rules and fight with the same conditions for victory. That's why it's possible for both sides to predict the other's moves. It's possible to read your opponent because you always suppose they'll make the best moves they can find. What if your opponent is fickle or a bit tired, and makes a move that can hardly be called the best? Or what if this game actually has a special rule? Some unknown thing that only the enemy knows about and can use? In fact, what if the opponent actually has some goal other than victory? Think from your enemy's perspective. That's the basis of chessboard thinking. Which means if you misread your enemy, the answer you draw from this process will be completely rubbish, useless. So far I've used chessboard theory to guess several vague bits of information about the culprit hiding behind this case, or so I think. However, I don't know anything about the culprit. Am I just playing around in a labyrinth of thought? If Kairi-san were here at a time like this, she'd probably be able to notice something with her much, much sharper thinking ability. Until the very last moment, Jessica resisted moving into grandfather's study. But in the end, Aunt Nazi persisted, and we decided to move there. Everyone was completely wrapped in paranoia by now. Kumasawa-san had prepared dinner at one point, but during the time we were discovering the deaths of George Oniki's parents, both the kitchen and the parlor had been left empty. Someone suggested that the food might have been poisoned while we were gone. Because of that, we were unable to even touch the food that Kumasawa-san had taken the trouble to make for us. The manner in which the first 6 were killed was still unknown, but certainly could have been poison. Certainly, that would allow even a single person to carry out the murder of 6 large adults. Furthermore, this idea made it easy to imagine there being only a single culprit, one would be afraid of Aunt Nazi's rifle. And this was very good for our emotional stability. But the fatigue and hunger were even harsher than we'd imagined. Then Kumasawa-san made a proposal and we all went together to the kitchen. There we gathered some canned food and other things that'd be hard to poison to take in with us. All of Kumasawa-san's efforts to reward us with just a little dinner on the savage day regrettably came to nothing. The food piled up on the serving cart looked just a little sad. We all started climbing the stairs. Aunt Nazi, who was in the lead, warily stared into the darkness with both eyes and the barrel of the gun. Damn right. Queen shit. Once we dragged ourselves up to the 3rd floor, just as Aunt Nazi had warned us of beforehand. There was a mixture of chemical smell and a sickly sweet aroma, stench hanging in the air that felt like it was eating into our heads. Let's see. This kind of stench probably would have given you a headache if you were shut in with it for a whole night. I know it's a little late, but I'm with Jessica. What against going into grandfather's study? I felt like the stench was floating out from this magnificent door. It was the door to the forbidden study, which should defend against any who would enter. While Genji-san unlocked the door, Maria stared at the door and the doorknob with great interest.
Incredible door.
It looks old and strict, like it'd stop any jokes cold. Perfect door for grandfather's study.
The power to ward off spiritual menaces is strong here. Beatrice probably couldn't open this door.
Oh? What does that mean? Maria pointed at the doorknob. A scorpion crest. No, a design, like a magic circle, arranged around a scorpion was inscribed there. Hell yeah. That design. That's right. Isn't it just like those keychain charms Maria gave Jessica and me yesterday?
The 5th magic circle of Mars is a strong ward against magic. Additionally, this magic circle is very diligently constructed and is full of power. Such a magic circle can be quite troublesome to beings of magic like Beatrice.
Isn't that comforting? Are you saying we can escape even Beatrice's clutches in this room? Our little witch here sure is reliable. Then how did Beatrice get grandfather out?
Just as badly reasoned. Beatrice can't go inside. However, she has both magic and familiars. Using them, she might have been able to get grandfather to leave the study of his own accord.
I've read about that in manga. I've seen a bunch of scenes where vampires were frightened of crosses so they couldn't get close. But their familiars were just fine, so they made their familiars attack.
Those scorpion keychain charms I gave you yesterday also had the 5th magic circle of Mars on them. The power dwelling within them was weak, but they should be enough to protect you until we leave the island. Although it sounds like you've lost yours, right?
Scorpion keychain charms.
The charm I gave you yesterday was something I got from Maria. I heard it would repel magic if you put it on your doorknob, and at the time I thought maybe it'd be better if you had it.
Is that so? I thought it was an odd thing for you to be carrying around.
Aunt Nazi put that on her doorknob?
Yes. Last night, after hearing about it from Jessica, I hung it on the doorknob on the inside of my door.
Then Aunt Nazi, you're really fortunate. If you did that, Beatrice probably couldn't even lay a finger on you yesterday. I think Beatrice must have been really annoyed.
Beatrice annoyed? Couldn't lay one finger. Nancy thought back on the eerie scribble she'd seen that morning as though someone had been tearing at the outside of her door with blood-soaked hands, and gasped in surprise. Could it be that this witch who called herself Beatrice tried to enter through the door to Nazi's own room? But the magic-repelling charm had been hanging from the inside, so she couldn't break through the door. So she was annoyed. So she scratched at it. Oh. Don't talk about that. Witches don't exist. The culprit does. And they're human just like us. If you need proof, why don't we dice her up and see if her blood's red? Damn it. Damn it! How could you do that? Do that to Kaneki.
Genji unlocked the door. 8 people entered Kinzo's study. But will 8 people leave? Grandfather's study. I heard rumors about it beforehand, so I wasn't that shocked. He had done nothing more than fortify it thoroughly with his occult hobbies. If Grandfather's hobby had been chasing after pop idols, these walls might be buried beneath idol posters. Even if I didn't understand it, I did realize that this room was a bundle of all his pastimes. Even so, I couldn't help but remain dumbfounded by the smell of this creepy medicine, the sweet stench that seemed to melt my head. When the door was closed, it automatically made a clunk. I see, this is the auto lock that's activated whenever the door is closed. And there were only 2 keys that could open this door from the outside, both of which were in this room. In other words, it had become a closed room. The shutter, the receipt, the chain, and now the auto lock. The 4th door had the most magnificent lock yet. This was undoubtedly a closed room. Just to make absolutely sure that the room was secure, we checked all over for ways in or out. The window was tightly locked. That should have been enough, but just in case, we tried knocking all over the walls. After all, we had talked about there being a hidden door in this room, but we couldn't find anything suspicious. Grandfather's study was very large. Even though we called it a study, it wasn't really a single room. It could be divided up into 4 basic sections: a study section, a bedroom section, a toilet-bathroom section, and a section for cooking that had a sink. I see. The study really does have enough in it to live in. Now I see how Grandfather could live his whole life in this room without ever leaving. It seemed Grandfather wasn't in the habit of watching TV because there was no television or even a radio in this room. We can't do anything except pass the time listening to the sound of the rain until tomorrow morning. Dr. Nanjo looked closely at the chessboard that sat on the table in front of the sofa and muttered. It was apparently the partly finished chess match he'd been playing with Grandfather until yesterday. The black had the white pretty well cornered, and it looked like the checkmate would be reached within a few moves. The last part of the endgame. Oh. Even though checkmate had almost been reached, the endgame had been rushed, and in the end, was never completed.
Kinzo-san, it seems we weren't able to see this match through after all.
Dr. Nanjo.
I was Kinzo-san's friend for a long time. I never knew about more than half of him. I believe 2 Kinzos existed. A wise one, and one trapped by some madness. I never understood anything about him.
Especially when it came to Beatrice-sama. It would seem like his personality changed.
In the direction of Kumasawa-san's upward gaze, a portrait of Beatrice could be seen. It wasn't massive like the one hanging in the entrance hall, but small, made for this room. Grandfather probably spent every day in this room, and so much of his time, talking to the witch in that portrait. Who was Beatrice to Grandfather in the first place? Right now, you couldn't just explain it away by saying it was a story made by parents to frighten children away from wandering into the forest. While eating the canned food we'd brought from the kitchen, we talked together about who Beatrice was. Whether the culprit was Beatrice herself or someone pretending to be her, whether they were a witch or a human, that was besides the point. The woman in this portrait was strongly related to the roots and background of this case. You couldn't talk about this case without talking about her. Have we not opened this letter yet? Y'all are discussing about who Beatrice might be. Open the letter. That's right. Mom, you picked up the thank you. You picked up the culprit's letter, not Ava's room, right? Yes. I still haven't opened it. Let's give it a try. Aunt Nancy took out that western envelope. Genji-san pulled a paper knife out of a drawer in the study desk and handed it to her. While watching her open it, George Aniki grimaced slightly. After all, it was a letter left at the site where his parents had been murdered. There was a good chance its contents would say something unbearable to Aniki. Aunt Nancy also seemed to realize that, so she glanced over the contents first without reading it aloud. We were all a little frightened that she might grimace after reading something shocking, but she just frowned unhappily.
What does it say?
There is one unpleasant sentence. It must be trying to provoke us. Nazi, after deciding that the contents could be shown to the children, set it openly on the table. Everyone stared at it at the same time. Praise my name. What the hell? That's a 9. It's probably Beatrice declaring herself the victor. Damn it. No, bet you were hoping another weird magic circle would show up. It wasn't a magic circle, but my expectations have been betrayed.
What could it mean? I wonder if she wants to tout her own existence.
That seems reasonable. With this letter, we now know that the author of last night's letter is the culprit. I think the identical envelope is more significant than what's written here.
Without a doubt, this is the type of envelope and sealing wax that the master used.
Oh, I don't know what's going on anymore. This is the first time I've seen anything like this since I started working for the Oshiramia family.
Going by last night's letter, Beatrice is claiming to be Grandfather's oldest confidant. Grandfather often said the same thing in the past, right? I spoke to Genji-san and Kumasawa-san, who nodded together. Yes, that means you two know more about her than anyone except Grandfather. Could you tell us? For a long time, I've purposefully avoided this topic. Now that it's come to this, I can no longer do so. Genji, tell us everything you know.
Yeah, Genji, spill the beans. Genji-san did not answer. Did he remain silent despite his knowledge, or did he know nothing at all? Still, I had a good guess. The ghost story of which Beatrice had long been deified among the servants. He had probably been very close to Grandfather in his occult hobbies, so there was a good chance that he'd been indoctrinated with even weirder things that had increasingly come to deify the witch. As Grandfather's most trusted servant, who had sworn loyalty to him, he might be the most influenced by the illusion of the witch that Grandfather had created. So there was only one reason for Genji-san to remain silent. He could speak, but it would definitely cause a backlash, so it was better if he kept his mouth shut, and it wasn't like we'd believe him anyway. Something along those lines. A short while ago, Maria had been more than willing to speak bluntly and unrestrainedly, and that had earned her a scuffle with Jessica. It was natural for Genji-san to keep his silence. Oh?
Was she Father's concubine?
Oh, damn. That's quite his concubine.
That could be possible. For ordinary poor people, polygamy isn't only viewed negatively from a moral perspective, it's also an unmaintainable financial situation. But that isn't the case for the very rich. It's possible for them to have another lover in addition to their real wife. We can't deny the possibility that Grandfather had another woman in his life besides Grandmother.
Maybe. When Grandmother was alive, I heard she was pretty sure of it. She thought he was cheating on her. I just figured she meant a witch that Grandfather had imagined up, but...
This is getting really interesting. You told me, didn't you, Genji-san? You said Beatrice has been working for Grandfather since before the mansion was finished. I heard that the construction of the mansion was completed in Showa 27.
1952.
I mean, this person called Beatrice was in a relationship with Grandfather since at least 30 years ago.
Could that concubine of 30 years ago, or maybe a relative or hidden child of that person, hold some kind of grudge and be planning revenge? Heh, I see. This is starting to sound just like your standard Western mansion mystery. It's a filthy topic, but the easiest line of reasoning to accept. What do you say, Genji?
I believe the master was indeed in love. Those feelings were certainly stronger than what he felt for his late wife.
Who's this person called Beatrice? And what's she doing now?
I have heard that she passed away before the mansion was completed.
She's already dead?
Yes. The master was deeply stricken by grief, and he devoted himself to the art of black magic as a means to revive her. The master loved Beatrice Sama from the bottom of his heart. It was that madness which drove him to do all that you see here.
As Genji-san said this, he spread his arms, as though asking us to look at this room, filled with the signs of Grandfather's madness. We were all at a loss for words. Normally, black magic seems like it'd just be creepy, It's really hard to imagine why someone might be so enraptured by it. Since Kinzo was just an eccentric who had restored the Ushiromiya family amidst his madness, nobody had tried to understand him. The only thing on grandfather's mind had been the loss of a beloved woman, and his inescapable sorrow. Earlier, this room had seemed creepy, but in an instant it had changed to something we could understand completely. The creepy books, the magic circles, the medicine, all of it. It all existed simply because he wanted to revive the face of a single woman who had left this world over 30 years ago.
My master only told me about Beatrice Sama's story once, when he was very drunk. Although I have forgotten the details. It was a deep, deep love, enough to make a woman like me jealous.
When Kinzo-san succeeded the headship of the Ushiromiya family, his marriage to his late wife had already been decided by the few surviving family elders.
So, he was forced into a marriage with some woman who would benefit the Ushiromiya family?
That is correct. Kinzo-san was installed as the head who would revive the family and had to bear the entirety of that heavy responsibility. I do not pretend to know the details of when or where Kinzo-san first met Beatrice.
Guess it'd be rude to say any more than that. That was when grandfather truly fell in love for the first time. Just how deep was his affection for her? That was easy to see just by looking around us. This room was covered with piles upon piles of things having to do with black magic. And grandfather spent every day shut in here, immersed in his research and isolated from the outside world, never regretting 1 minute of it. You couldn't help but recognize the depths of grandfather's love for Beatrice.
I had it all wrong, Genji-san.
What do you mean by that?
I always thought that maybe you servants believed blindly in the witch because you'd gotten brainwashed by grandfather and his creepy black magic stuff. But that's not how it was, right?
Had they been Had they been soothing grandfather's tortured heart, acting as though Beatrice's soul at least had been restored, and existed inside this mansion? Though Genji-san closed his eyes wearing the expression of one remembering the distant past, he said nothing further. He probably felt that making such a confession would be the worst sort of betrayal against his one and only master, even though that master was already dead. Beatrice has revived as a witch, and exists in this mansion even now. Genji had said this, had believed it, had made people believe it, and would follow through with that decision to the grave. This might have been the last service he could offer up to his master. The legend of the witch, a mysterious tale of Rokunjima that was still whispered of amongst the servants. Its true nature was a sad lie. Oh, was it? No. It was an act of kindness towards grandfather, who had lost the person he loved above all else. I love it just cuts back to Nazi holding the gun. I remember denying the witch's existence in front of father on multiple occasions. Now I finally understand how much that must have wounded him.
Right now, I can understand very well. I thought I could revive Shannon using black magic. I'd immediately become the next owner of this room and start researching.
Aniki. Another strand of tears dripped from George's eyes. Maybe his tears were infectious. Tears rose to Jessica's eyes too, and she sniffled. And then Maria.
Haha! Beatrice has said it. Very soon she'll be able to revive people. You'll be able to meet them, she said.
Very soon, the door to the Golden Land will be opened. In the promised land that glitters gold, the souls of all the dead will be resurrected, along with the love that has been lost. Then I will sleep in a world of peacefulness for all time. Did she say that? The Beatrice who gave you that letter.
You don't believe, do you?
If only grandfather were here, and I'm sure he'd be happy. I'm sure he'd be jumping for joy now that Beatrice is about to be revived. In that case, I believe. Grandfather gave up half his life for this research, trying to resurrect the soul of the woman he loved, spending the rest of his life believing. I'll believe too.
Father?
When you love a single woman for so long, people around you catch on to it, and it becomes the truth. Maybe you could say they're just being polite for the sake of your feelings.
But right here, now, I'd like to call that magic.
It isn't just being polite. It really is magic. She's a witch. Hehehehe. Looks like nobody can see Beatrice after all.
Some time passed. As we listened to the sound of the rain, we considered what kind of love and madness must have possessed the owner of this room as he spent half of his life here.